G'day legends and welcome back to the NRS round 3, of the Esports National Road Series. My name's Jethro from the Press Room Podcast, and we've got a climbing race today. Certainly a course that I would like if I was racing. We are on the WBR Watopia climbing route. Katie has just stepped in. Welcome. It got me out of the void and into the mountains. Katie, how are you going?
Be for everybody tonight. A lot of the Aussies are stuck somewhere where it's fairly rainy and average. A good session on the indoor trainer will do them the world of good. And of course, we've been watching a very flat Tour de France so far. So a little bit of mountain inspo before we head into week 2 there. But it's a bit of a longer course tonight, Jet. So I hope everybody is either warmed up or has their water bottles and their food ready to go, because with 43 kilometres, it's longer on the indoor trainer than we've seen so far with the NRS.
Yeah, definitely. We've got the previous results from last week, or the current team results. We're looking at the standings for the men. We've got Neurocontinental running in third place, CCS Cycling, the Canberra Cycling setup, and then St George Continental in first place. About a 100-point deficit to the Canberra team. And then on the women's side, we'll see those results as well. The Women's Racing Project is in third spot. Then we've got Inform Make and Butterfields, who really have a storming lead of 300 points. But, Kate, you're right. This course, you need to be warmed up, and it's one of the courses where you'll tend to hit your best 20-minute powers for the years or even all time when you're running on the Epic KOM. They're doing it twice.
Oh. It's just offensive. I mean, I don't mind the Epic KOM, I must say, but it is the kind of climb that's quite a lot of fun to do on your own. With a good Netflix series on or a good playlist. It's a great training ride. It's very different to race up there. And I think we will see the difficulty of the course reflected in the way that the riders tackle it. So we will jump down and take a look at the action, because there's lots going on, and we've got a lot of the big names lining up tonight. We've had some pretty good attendance so far. We've even got a little sneaky rider cam tonight, Jet. Take a look at that.
Yeah, I like that. The little flag in the background too. We've got Ben Hill from the CCS team all sponsored up, got the McDonald's sponsors there. And it's going to be cool to see, I guess the riders' faces and actually get to see how hard they're working with respect to the watts they're doing, sitting at 5 watts per kilo. 5.8, a bit higher than that. They're already on the climb. So what we've missed, we're just tuning in, 4.7 Ks. This climb starts around 3 kilometres in. So they are already on the climb, and we're going to see maybe a gradual thinning out of the group, because they do this climb twice. So, it's all out already. And Ben looks comfortable, but he's certainly working hard. The fan isn't on yet.
No, I feel like the fan is, a good indicator of effort, and I reckon he's got a nice little tempo there. It is good to see the rider cam, because, of course, on top left of screen we can see his cadence, we can see his power and his heart rate, his metrics, and jump into Zwift Power and follow along with some of that too. But it is, when we are watching in real life racing, you do often get so used to watching the effort on on their shoulders. Are they rocking and rolling? Do they look quite comfortable? Sometimes metrics are just metrics. And so it is really great, I think, to have this inside view. Ben Hill, he looks really comfortable. If you were just looking at his power, you'd think that he was really starting to head up toward that kind of threshold effort. But I reckon he's looking pretty good and pretty comfy.
Yeah, he is. We've got who else is there sitting there in third posse? Someone's done well on the Protone climbing challenge. I've already got that helmet. But look, this is a interesting climb. Not only is the climb important as well, but also the descent. The descent is tricky because you can't just get over the top in the front group and then just sort of coast on the descent. It's actually quite a dangerous point in the race to get dropped, as all the riders just disappear and then hit the maybe they all hit the ghost power up because all at the moment we've got floating avatars. But as I was mentioning,
Ooh.
as they go, it's an interesting aspect. We'll cross over to the women who we can see, but on board with Carly Taylor from Inform Make. Carly had a really good race in the first round. Wasn't there for the second round, but hopefully there to get some points for Inform because they're about 300 points behind the Butterfields racing team. And there she is.
Well, and the women's field, it's a really different dynamic because it is a bit of a smaller field, but it's great to see Ella Blore along here at the moment too. And look, Carly looks pretty comfy, but Carly is still at this point one of the world's best climbers, not just the country's best climbers. And she's certainly very, as a Zwift employee, she knows the game inside and out. And she knows these courses inside and out as well. It's going to be pretty tough for anybody to hold a wheel if she does go whack. Ella Blore is in a pretty good position to do that, but they are, of course, teammates here. But we can see from rider cam, Jet, that Carly looks pretty comfy. She's just taking tempo, climbing a bit out of the seat. And if you just looked at the avatar, you wouldn't think that at 3% she'd be tapping away out of the seat like that. So it just goes to show different styles of riders. But Carly certainly wanting to put the pressure on, but maybe not explode at all just yet.
Yeah, certainly. One to look out for when you're watching at home, Ella Simpson as well, who won the second round. And she's certainly one who's got to like the climbing. And this climb is interesting because it's, what is it? It's 9.4 Ks at about 4%. And it really has a mix of gradients. We can see here it's only 3%. The bridge is the easier part of the course. And then it does ramp up a little bit more a couple of Ks on before having a few downhill segments. So there's lots of gradients where you can sit in the wheels like the girls seem to be doing just now. And then also when it ramps up and you need to be applying equal power. As we can just see on the men's side, we have, who's that? C. Pythe there, just putting on a bit of pressure now. But the bunch is back together. I can see the watts per kilos around the 4.5 sort of mark. So when they're really going for it, it's going to be in the five sort of 5.5 category. So it's all together, and it's quite good to see because they do this climb twice, Katie. So and the radio tower. So do you think the bunch will be waiting for that
Oh.
2% ensemble?
Oh, yikes. I mean, I definitely think there's an element of the radio tower where, and this kind of climb, where you're not necessarily waiting for something. You just ride your tempo, and very few people can stay up, certainly on the radio tower. Now, if we can, I'll ask production in the background because she's genius, Anna Russell, if we can get a course profile. But otherwise, I'll pull it up on Zwift Power and we can take a look at what that final looks like. Now we'll try and get one up screen on screen too, so bear with us. But I think that in these early stages of the race, you'd almost be on a bit of a kamikaze mission if you were going actually actively attacking. And I think there is a big difference with what we're seeing Ollie Jones do here, which is setting a bit of tempo versus actually attacking and wanting to go solo. Or, really split the bunch up and animate it. I think we're too early in the race for that. 7.4 kilometres. There is 43 kilometres in total.
Yeah, that's right. There's a lot of climbing to come, and I guess there might be some riders that may prefer a race an ascent on this climb. They might prefer a bit more of an up and down climb in terms of effort. Someone like Sam Hill, we know he's a really big engine, and he'll just want to sit on a big bit of power and just hold it nice and steady. Time trial, he won't want too many accelerations in there. I'm not sure what type of ride Ollie Jones would like to see. He's the strongest. We've seen him win the first 2 rounds. He's going for the hat trick today, and the sort of series leader. And I wonder if he's just saving himself from that second and final climb. But I reckon at 1.1 kilometres, averaging 13%. That is the radio tower. We all know it. It's kind of funny when you get to the top of the Epic KOM and you're doing a route or you're doing a like some sort of group ride. You're never sure until the very last moment if your avatar is going to turn left onto the radio tower. Sometimes
Yeah.
you're praying that it doesn't. And we can see the course profile. That little spike there at the top. That is the radio tower. It is certainly one of the few parts of Zwift in the world, or the world of Zwift, where it actually tests the gradient simulation on your trainer. It maximizes at 16%. It's brutal.
Oh, it is brutal. I think sometimes also when you've got, depending on how your trainer is set, you're kind of ticking up there. And you look up and you realise how slowly your avatar is actually going, and you're like, oh, heavens, okay. This is going to take me a little bit longer than I thought. But it is an interesting one to throw into a race, especially mid-race. Toward the end of a race, that they will just belt up there as much as they can. But certainly they're going to take it a bit easier on the actual climb themselves. Even for non-climbers, this climb is absolutely doable at a good tempo. Yeah. If you can just find your rhythm and settle in and get it done. There are a few periods of up and down during it that sort of help the legs, but the radio tower kind of breaks all the rules. But let's just check out Ollie Jones here on our rider cam. How chilled is he looking? It looks like he's playing Tetris on his handlebars there or something. He's so chilled out. Maybe texting, who knows what he's doing. In companion app, giving everybody some power-ups, some thumbs, who knows?
Yeah, that's right. He's certainly cruising. I mean, what are they sitting on here? 4.5 watts per kilo. He can do well over 5.5 for 20 minutes. And in fact, he did 400 watts for 37 minutes to win the second round 2 weeks ago. So you can see there he's very comfortable. He's got the towel around the head. He's got the old school headband. Mitch Docker would like that one as they just roll over the cobbles. But looking very good. He's looking to keep his powder dry. I think what some of the other teams could do once they go over the top of this first climb, he's obviously the favourite and proved to be one of the strongest. The other teams such as Canberra Cycling, Inform, they're going to have to use maybe their team strength, their team numbers to try and attack him in that valley that's in between the radio tower ascent and then the final epic KOM climb. Because there is space there.
There is space. Now, it's interesting within teams, especially in the men's, we've got two different dynamics going. We've got the different team dynamics and which teams are going to try and want to win with what riders. But we also have, even within the teams, a number of teammates who can help each other for that final result. But maybe if it comes down to a bunch, a smaller group with those specific riders, they can then help each other. Over on the women's side, Carly's almost taken it as a bit of a challenge, where I said she's just tempo riding and trying to not to crack anybody's legs. And she's, quite offensively thrown the baby out with the bathwater there, Carly Taylor. She has absolutely hit it. Vassal, the only one from Step Forward, able to stay with her at this point. And they're sitting up near 5 watts per kg. And offensively, how calm does Carly look? No, this is where you expect to see the rider cam and, some serious all over the bike happening, but she is just totally in control. Ella Blore and Nicholson, they are almost together with Hollyoaks there as well, so a little bit of a bunch forming there. If I was Vassal, I would just sit and let Carly Taylor do her thing. She doesn't look to be letting down. And in fairness, she doesn't look to be tiring out either.
Yeah, she's holding it. Certainly a pace that she can hold. Rose Vassal from Step Forward. Doing really well in the wheel here. And she's, like I said, this gradient does go up and down. We're at a slightly steeper part of it here. I'm actually quite surprised to see some of the time gaps we've got here. It's 21 seconds back to Ella Simpson, and she was so strong in the round two where she won convincingly. Really interesting there. Now, she was sitting on around 4 watts per kilo moments ago when we first crossed back to the women's feed, and now she's back on to 4.5. So I wonder, you can see now, she's really closing the gap to the others. I wonder if she had maybe a bit of a power dropout or something like that, because it didn't seem right. But she's powered back onto the wheel here. They get a bit of a flat section, a chance to get a little bit of draft as they go through this archway here. Quite cool little town bit through this section, on the cobbles as well. But 21 seconds to Carly and Rose. If these four riders, there's another one in Catherine Nicholson that's just ahead, Caitlin Nicholson, sorry. If they can get together, form a chase group, they will be able to bring them back at 14 seconds, because there is that big downhill and the valley, and that will favour the group that is chasing. But I guess we'll wait and see. Rose and Carly can work together and try and extend this lead. But on the rodeo tower, it's going to be, well, I guess we'll see how they go there, because there's no drafting on that one.
Well, it's no drafting on that one. Sometimes it is really good to have a little bit of a tempo and somebody just to help you meter your effort and pace. Now, we've got a big attack happening over in the men's with Troy Herfoss. We've discussed him in previous weeks, the super bike rider, very, very fit. His wife, Emily, also an exceptionally talented bike rider. And they've got a small human at home as well, Rose, I believe her name may be. I might have gotten that wrong. So they are doing an incredible job as working parents and multitasking also with their athletic endeavours. It's very impressive. Troy Herfoss has been a big contender at the National Road Championships at Ballarat with this attacking style on the climbs, just consistent pace. He's very, very good at getting into a rhythm and just knocking out a really solid, threshold effort, if you will. And I think that this is a very strategic move from St. George, don't you think, Jet? Because they're up against some of the other teams. They've got good team depth, and St. George need to be on the front foot so that they don't come under attack, especially up to that radio tower.
Yes, certainly. I'm just trying to find what team Troy Herfoss is actually on. I'm not actually sure. But he's got a sizable gap. 20 seconds is a lot on a climb, and he must have put in a pretty vicious attack, because the bunch is still sitting on around 5 watts per kilo. They're not panicking yet. They know that descent, they'll be able to certainly close some of that time off, because the bunch will certainly be a lot quicker on the descent. But he must have put in quite a searing attack, and now he's settling in. Yeah, we did see him a lot in previous nationals in the stealth black kit, I remember. And it's good to see him having a go. The bunch not panicking though. They're I guess they don't. We saw this mistake happen earlier in round two when Ollie Jones was off the front and the bunch kind of hesitated. And I wonder, could the same be happening again? They do look organised, but they don't want to give them too much time.
No, it is an interesting balance, because you can also you can lose a lot very quickly from a solo break when the bunch does start getting organised. Some of that is, not as relevant when you are going up the climb, but this is a bit of an up-down climb, as we discussed, especially at this point. They'll go over the top here, a few rollers down, and then it is each man for their own on that radio tower. If they didn't have to come up here again, then this would be such a critical part of any chase, because once they go over the radio tower and then they do the descent, there's not a lot of time to chase as a bunch. But given the fact that we do go up here again, it does still leave, it's still really early days. There's still another 30 plus kilometres, with some of them being quite tough for Herfoss out the front. And this is a pretty big chasing bunch. They certainly haven't really put the hammer down back here yet.
No, not yet. Not yet. It's actually a really good tactic. I like this tactic from Troy Herfoss because if you're watching at home, imagine when they hit this radio tower, it's not going to be organised. It's not going to be orderly. They'll certainly step on the pedals. There's only one way to go up that climb. Now, maybe Troy perhaps thinks he doesn't have the top end power to maybe compete with someone like Ollie Jones on that climb on the radio tower, or some of the really the lighter riders like Torben Partridge Madsen, for example. So if he gets a little bit of a gap, 20 seconds into the radio tower, perhaps he gets to the top. And meanwhile, fireworks in the Pello as they hit the radio tower. A front group emerges, and then he just jumps on that as they hit the descent. So maybe he's just trying to get ahead of the action and then jump on the winning train as it comes along.
Yeah, and that's a really good way to ride it, actually. I think depending on what kind of a climb you like, it's certainly not flawed to put in a
Mm,
little bit of effort early and then climb at your own pace and, on your own terms, because some riders prefer a really dynamic climb where it starts and stops a bit and they get a bit of rest and feel better. But there's a lot of riders who just prefer tempo. Troy Herfoss is one of those. So going up here, even on
mm,
the really steep slopes that he's about to hit, he doesn't need to overcook it
yeah,
to match back and forth accelerations. He just needs to keep it that tempo. And talking about that tempo, over in the women's, Carly and Vassal still together. Carly did push a bit off the front, but they are now back together. And interestingly, Nicholson and
oh,
Simpson are not too far off now. So they're only
yeah,
7 to 8 seconds. It looks to me like they're coming back. We're
mm,
watching Vassal. So that heart rate is Vassal's. She is working pretty hard for that.
wow,
Let's just jump over to Carly Taylor if we can and follow her for a second because I want to see those metrics. So her heart rate significantly lower there. Thank you, Anna. Brilliant in production. So we can see that there's a fairly significant difference in heart rate between threshold versus, really pushing into that red zone. The question
mm,
is Carly Taylor going to keep pushing this? Ella Bloor is now, her teammate, is now 37 seconds back, so it looks like she may be out of it. From a
yeah.
numbers game, if Carly's feeling pretty good, she would be one of two here or one of four from her team. So this isn't a bad situation for her if she's comfortable. Based on rider cam, what do you reckon, Jet? I reckon she looks pretty comfy.
Yeah, I think she is. I think she can probably foreshadow the Simpson and Nicholson group coming back. She can probably see them right now from the Butterfields Racing. They're two teammates. They've worked together really well to come back here. Now, I hope, now that Carly has established that, well, she's going to be aggressive in this race, I hope to see Simpson and Nicholson attack this group. They've got to use their numbers here. They've got two really strong riders. Simpson won last round. Nicholson was second in the last round. So they're super strong. And now Carly, I think we might see the race just go to a bit of a lull as Simpson and Nicholson catch their breath. But you can see here Carly just cruising now. They're hitting this descent. They'll stomp the gears a little bit here. I wonder if Carly just pushes on the pedals a little bit over this, a touch. But as they approach the radio tower, that's when we might see it all kick off yet again because Bloor, Oaks, and Green, they're well and truly off the back, unfortunately. Oh, here we go. We've got the men hitting the radio tower. We know that familiar dip as you start to hit the gradients here. And Troy Herfoss, with a 25-second gap, is now hitting the steep gradients, pushing his trainer to the limit. Now, I wonder, will he get over the top with 20 seconds plus? If he does, it'll be super advantageous. We've got Dylan McKenna from Nero just checking in on everyone's chamois cream application. That's really a bib short thing, I think. You don't need chamois cream if you've got a good pair of bib shorts. But Dylan McKenna hitting up first, and I wonder if we'll start to see some splits and a few breaks in the peloton as Troy Herfoss, well, he's picked up the Mountains jersey, and look at this, Kate. It's starting to. Oh, we've got gaps. We've got gaps.
This is where you can't do much but just I ran out of chamois cream. Thanks, Dylan. That's super duper. I'm glad that we all know that. And quite frankly, I'm quite glad Dylan's not on rider cam right now, because that would be causing us to all look a little bit too closely.
Yes, that's
But
right.
suffice to say that you cannot hide up here. I mean, look on screen. We're not exaggerating at what that 13% looks like. Sam Hill up and out of the seat, just to keep that constant power, over 6.5 watts per kg. Like, he is working hard. He's managing to maintain a fairly poker face, might I say, but the rocking and rolling of the shoulders gives it away. Now, importantly, Jet, Troy Herfoss, that gap is coming down, but his power, watts per kg, is
Holding steady.
noticeably lower. It's holding steady, but it's lower than the other guys, which is great, because if he's not at his limit, if that's a really tempered effort, that is where he can time it a little bit, where when he gets caught, he can take a bit of a breather. But it's going to be tight toward the top. Will he get caught at a really inopportune moment, or will he be able to hang out just until the top? You know, this is where it can be both very helpful and very difficult time for Troy Herfoss.
Yeah, certainly. I think he's going to get caught and spat out the back. He's getting sucked in very, very quickly. Look at him. You see on screen now, it's Sam Hill who's leading the charge. And then Patrick Madsen is there as well. He will like this. Torben in third place at the moment. He's a lighter rider, and he will certainly be looking to put on a bit of power on this part of the course. He'll like this section rather than just finishing on the Epic KOM later on. Ollie Jones there, 6.5 watts per kilo. Wonder how he's looking on the screen, but Sam Hill pushing on now. They're really reeling him in, and now all of a sudden we've got a front group of 4 with about 3 or 4 riders sort of everywhere, a little bit behind, but they're going to catch Herfoss, and we'll see his watt spike, and hopefully he can hold on here, because if he does, it'll be a very good tactical move, and 5 riders on that descent should be enough to distance the others. But let's see if Troy Herfoss can benefit from just taking it a little bit easier on this climb. He starts to settle in, 6 watts per kilo. Patrick Madsen's trying to push on as well. Ollie Jones, he's looking for 3 in a row. We've certainly got our front 5. And Campbell Pithy as well. He is also up there for St George. They've got 2 riders in that front group, Kate. The power, wow, 440 watts.
Yeah, it's a good place to be in for the team. And I think the question is, what do they do with that, Jet? What do we think that they will do with that? They're so close to the top now that it's almost like the game's been played for now. And they're down to 5. It does look to me like there's a very good chance that Henderson and Conway will be able to make their way back, but they will have to hustle hard to do that straight away. It is a pretty quick descent, isn't it? So if you're not on fairly quickly, gaps can open up and just become almost a little bit impossible to chase back when you do have that front group that is so strong. Now, what's happening here? It looks like Cam Pithy may have just had a moment there. Yeah. He is. Yeah. He dropped off, then he came back into orange. It's almost. Did he drop his water bottle? Did he just have a moment where he thought he needed a break? And over on the women's,
here we
go.
Are
back together. But I can't foresee this lasting too long, because with any kind of tempo, this is where, on these steep banks, people just get dropped without really meaning to.
That's right. Who's going to hit out first? It looks like Rose Vassell is really giving it the beans. At the bottom, we saw on the men's just how long this climb goes for. So there is the risk of going too hard, too early, as well, but she's just throwing caution to the wind. She's the only one from her team step forward who desperately needs some points. They're not on the podium. Carly Taylor just trying to manage that gap. Elle Simpson is there as well. Nicholson from the Butterfields Racing. We saw them come back together. They're just keeping their cards close to their chest. No one's opening up properly yet. But Rose is just testing them out. Carly's closing, and is she going to go over the top now? She's got quite a big speed differential, and look at the gear she's turning. You can see that 64 RPMs. You've got to be out of the saddle there. Her heart rate is the highest we've seen it so far, around the 280, 290 watts now, and Carly's pushing on. Ella Simpson's just trying to hold on. Nicholson getting distance. Now look at Carly's bike. She's on the lightweight Trek Amonda with the Dura-Ace 9000. What a classic bike. And how about the stem angle as well? Katie, she's pushing on. Carly's got a gap.
Yeah, and she looks so comfortable too. And this is really dropping a feather up. That's a good time to do it on this 14% section. She is starting to look a little bit distressed, even in her breathing and the way that she's climbing. That cadence is pretty slow. It's pretty trademark for Carly to climb in a heavier gear as well, and she's not a sit down and tap away at the climb kind of rider. We all have the different styles. Now, behind, Vassal's doing an exceptionally good job, and this is where Carly needs to consider, what's she doing the effort for? Is she trying to break Vassal? Because if she is, she needs to get a bit of a bigger gap across the top in order to maintain that down the other side. But you know what? Vassal is starting to struggle a bit more. That gap is opening up a little bit. And maybe Carly, that's exactly what she's trying to do. And I guess we will figure that out at the top, whether she keeps going with it or whether she's using this to kind of warm up her climbing legs, come back to that group of 4 and then hit them again on that second lap.
Yeah, I mean, the other girls don't need to panic here. They just need to stay together. The 3 of them can get together and work on that descent and in the valley as well, because once they get over the top of this climb, I think it's around kilometre 15 and a half is the top of this climb when they start to descend, 15.5, I think. And then the time they hit the next climb, the final climb, Epic KOM, 33 kilometres. So there is a lot of time for those girls to get together, Vassal, Simpson, Nicholson, and start working to bring her back. But I wonder how much of a gap Carly can get here. She's working really hard now, certainly at her limit, I would say, as we look at Rose, Vassal, and Ella Simpson, just pushing that 4 watts per kilo, a little over the top. Yeah, they're gonna, as long as they stay together, they've got a chance to reel back in Carly. Plenty of kilometres left.
There are plenty of Ks left, but I think when you do get dropped on these important parts of the course, we've got to consider, are they being dropped because climbing isn't necessarily their strength and they will make it back up on the other side, or are they getting dropped because they're just a little bit at that level below Carly? They're 2 quite different scenarios in terms of their ability to climb back on. It takes a little bit of maturity, Jet, when you're a rider, to climb at a pace that you know will then allow you to proceed with the next 30 kilometres of the course and have something left. So it may be easy. Let's use Vassal as an example. She may be able to climb with Carly and get over the top, but in doing so means that she may then get dropped on the downhill or the flat afterwards. So it may be a very good show of control if she just climbs at her threshold and then has a little bit of faith in getting over the top. But what we can know for sure is if you climb well above your threshold, trying to hold somebody's wheel, then you will not be able to chase back on, because you're just not allowing yourself enough recovery and comfort to be able to do that. So a little bit of time will tell, but either way, this is how you become a better bike rider. This is how you become a better esports racer. And what we're seeing over in the women and discussing is not too different from what we're seeing over in the men. Jet, Ollie Jones, he's on the move.
Yeah. Look, that's your front group of 4 just there. It looks like we've got there Sam Hill, Ollie Jones, Campbell Pithy, and Partridge Madsen. They are the front 4, and not far behind, you've got Ben Hill, who's done pretty well to rally, and then Henderson as well. They're kind of in between. Conway and Herfoss are still in touch, about 20 seconds back, but the front group of 4 here, they're working together to keep the others away and make it a 4-man game. And yeah, as you mentioned just before talking about the women, I guess when it comes to managing your effort, you really need to know your abilities quite well, don't you, Kate? Like, you need to know, what your level is, how much power you can do, and try not to get caught up with the excitement of trying to chase. It's certainly a mature attribute to have, being able to pull back like that.
It is, and I think it comes with, it's not just experience in real life racing, it's also esports, because it's quite a different thing on the trainer. You very rarely stop pedaling. Now, I say that and we're watching Ollie Jones literally power tucking and not pedaling, but there are very few. The difference is when you're on the road and even in your climbing, you will still get these little seconds of very low power. And especially in the bunch on flatter roads, you tend not to get that on the trainer. You also tend not to get out of the seat as much, just from a technique point of view. It's very hard on the body. Even the heat that you generate, even with a good fan setup, your internal body temperature certainly rises more as a general rule on the indoor trainer than it does out on the road. And so there's quite a lot to manage when you're thinking about managing effort. And so some of the most experienced in real life riders actually come into esports and they get thrown all of these different elements at them. And it does take a little bit of time and maturity to then get it done. It's a really good thing sometimes to check in Zwift Power and take a look at how many races they've ridden, what level they're at. So you're not just getting a gauge of the engine that they might have, but also the in-game experience.
Absolutely. It's we just saw before while you were discussing that was Ollie Jones just having a gel as well. It's a pretty well timed gel, I have to say, because you don't just get that energy straight away when you put a gel in. It's not instant, although it feels like it. Usually that energy comes in a little bit later. There's a delay when those carbohydrates are absorbed. And as we were saying before, there's about, well, what have we got? 24 Ks. There's another 10 Ks before they hit the climb, and probably another 15 before they really get into the spicy sections. And that's probably about when you want that gel to kick in. So Ollie Jones is thinking ahead, perhaps foreshadowing a big attack on the final climb. But, Kate, do you think this group of four can stay away from that chasing group of three with Hill and Conway?
I think it depends whether they want to be in it for the long haul. I think that when you've got Hill, Ben Hill, he can. How do I put this? I'd back him to get back to anything if they want to. So I think that they're certainly in a position to, but they do need to work together. And also just from a team perspective, let's just take a look at those different team dynamics and team balance going on at the front and what they may want. What we do know is from this rider cam of Ben Hill, and it's such a great insight. Thank you so much, Ben, for signing up for this, is that we can see that he is riding at a pretty solid pace. He looks pretty determined to get back. So I have a feeling that these pair might just start to claw it back. Also, we were talking about experience, right, Jet? They don't need to bring this gap back in 1 kilometre. But they also don't want to take 15 kilometres to bring it back. So they need to temper their effort and make sure, as we were talking about, they don't go into that red zone and make more of a problem, using up those cookies than getting back. But if we keep an eye, it's not just what these two guys are doing, it's also what's happening in the front. We're seeing lots of orange light ups. So are they just getting out of their seats, stretching their legs, or are they starting to have a few digs up the front? Let's take a look at that.
Yeah. Maybe they were just having a little look and seeing how everyone's going in that front group of four. They look like they're pretty well organised there. Perhaps they're just getting out of the seat. I was looking at Ben Hill and Henderson there, trying to chase back 15-second gap they have, working really well together. They're alternating quite well, looking at Ben Hill and Henderson's power, where one moves forward and you can kind of watch each other on screen and see when the power turns off. So you can see there Henderson around 4.9 as Hill moves up to around 5, and you can kind of alternate and it's a bit of a technique swapping off on Zwift and taking turns. You kind of need to have one eye on the avatar and then another eye on the power to know when a rider has sort of eased off a touch. As you can see, Pithy's there getting a nice draft. Who's coming through here? Someone else will push the power. That's Padre. So we've got Pithy's now moving forward to the front position as the others drop their watts down. But they're working, but they're not doing a lot. So I think Hill and Henderson still have a chance, but it is 2 versus 4. That's not necessarily in the Group Two's favour.
No, this will take a little bit of time to play out. It is slowly ticking down. It might only be 1 second at a time, 2 seconds at a time. A bit of an advantage that a chasing group has sometimes is that they can get into a nicer rhythm that is less wearing, where a front group often has a few more little digs and they might on again, off again, which can snap those legs a little bit. I am encouraged by the gap coming down slightly, but it isn't. They do still need to really make consistent chunks out of that. Otherwise, it's like you can see them but not quite get on, and that's a pretty frustrating place to ever be in a chase bunch. You've been there, right? Like you're off the back in a club race. This is how it used to happen to me, and I'd be like, I can do this, and but I wouldn't know the riders that I was chasing well enough. And I would kind of gauge my own effort, and you'd get close, but you could just never, like, it breaks your soul, it breaks your spirit. Maybe a bonus that they can't actually see them up the road here. I don't know.
Yeah, that's it's a good point. And seeing the riders in front, just being able to see them is kind of similar to watching that time gap ever so slightly come down. As long as the numbers for Henderson and Hill, that plus 11, that plus 10 seconds, as long as that is going down, whether it's fast or slow, they will keep pushing, they will keep being motivating to chase. As soon as it starts to tick up, you really start to lose motivation. And it's really coming down quite a lot now because the front group of 4, they are not pushing on at all. And I suspect that's because Sam Hill doesn't want to work that much with Jones. Jones and Torben Patrice Madsen, they finished first and second last week. They're super strong, and I think Sam Hill isn't that keen to drive to the line with Ollie Jones, and he's making him do all the work. And we can see here, as soon as there is an attack, all 4 are straight onto it, and Henderson and Hill have already came back to this group. They're about to make contact. It's all happening now. Ollie Jones, he's seen everyone's not working with him, and he's going to go solo and just try and shake it up. And so Henderson and Hill, they were just about to get back on, and Ollie Jones saw the danger, and he's absolutely lit it up, put it in the 11, and just as they're about to get on, he's kicked, and it's really caused a stir. Hill and now Henderson are 6 seconds off when they were only 2 seconds away, and Pithy, Patrice Madsen, and Sam Hill are now trying to get back on terms. Now remember, Patrice Madsen is on the same team as Ollie Jones. Actually, no, he's not. Cameron Campbell Pithy is. So Pithy is not going to chase in that second group. It's down to Madsen and Sam Hill to chase. Kate, we've got Ollie Jones. He's now just attacked the bunch as Hill and Henderson were getting back on. It is now down to Sam Hill and Patrice Madsen to bring him back because Pithy is his teammate. And he's holding 5, 6 watts per kilo. And now the others, the power, you can see in the power window just on your right, if you're watching at home, the power has dropped. They are not working well together, that chasing group. And you can see that because Hill and Henderson have got to Group 2. So now Group 2, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 riders. And Ollie Jones, well, he's pushing on solo. And he's about to hit the base of the climb in 2 kilometres. I guess the question is, can he hold off that group of 6 with 2 teammates in there before he gets to the top? I guess we'll see. We're just waiting on Kate.
I think I should be back. Sorry, Jet. How's that for tech issues? My own fault too. This is quite a change of dynamics. We were looking so carefully at Hill and Henderson and how they were tracking. Meanwhile, I think that would have been fairly frustrating for Ollie Jones to watch it come down so quickly too and think, we just had that gap going. So he has certainly taken the bull by the horns and taken this. The thing with Ollie Jones is because he's such a good time trialist and he's just so consistent is when normally you might look at a rider and say, it's crazy to go solo, this far out. he's actually one of the riders who would love it. He laps it up. He goes, oh, solo, I can ride my own pace. I can do my own thing. And so he actually becomes quite dangerous out there. I also want a little shout out to Troy Herfoss, who did make so much animation early on. It looks like he might have sayonara'd for the night, which, you know what, gotta be in it to win it. You know, I guess that's to discuss, Jet, our Golden Bilby Awards and our Honey Badger, our Golden Bilby for the women and our Honey Badger for the men, kind of most impressive, most combative rider. I think you've got to finish to get it, right?
I think so as well. You have to finish for sure. No DNFs allowed. You can't go the full Hail Mary and then expect to get the goods.
Although that could be really entertaining. Like we need to do that just one night, because that may encourage some people to really go hell for leather, and that could be quite entertaining. I say that entertaining for us in the commentary box, maybe not entertaining for the other riders.
Yeah, well, Ollie Jones at the moment, out solo. We saw this last week. Once he got a gap, he was very, very hard to bring back. And the bunch in round 2 was much bigger than it is now. There's 5 riders, and they simply will not work together. Look at the power outputs. 2.5, 3 watts per kilo. They're putting the rack or the queue in the rack, because Ollie Jones, he can sit on 5.5 watts per kilo all day long. Well, actually, you can sit there for about 20 minutes, and there's less than 20 minutes to go, I would say, in this stage. So the boys behind need to get a move on, and I'm really, I'm kind of disappointed. I really would expect someone like Sam Hill to just get on the front and say, look, let's just get us into contention and bring it back to 10 seconds, because I think Ollie's one of the fastest on the climb, and I guess it's not necessarily all down to Sam, but they're not going to look to, Campbell Pithy to chase. So he's one out of that 5 that is not going to chase because they're on the same team. So it's 4 versus 1. And at the moment, Katie, the 4 are not really chasing.
Oh, sounds like your spirit's been broken, mate. It sounds like you're just like, oh, what is going on? And it's actually one of, I think it's one of those commentator curse kind of things where we always want to be so positive, but sometimes you're watching thinking like, what are you doing? And we watch so many bike races that, we're here to have an opinion, I suppose. But it's hard because it may be frustrating to watch, but at the same time, the guys have to be really strategic, and depending on how they're feeling or going, I can't see what's being said there. Can you see that?
It's great work, Henderson. Very strong. That's Sam Hill giving Henderson some encouragement. I like that. Yeah, you do have to do that, don't you, Katie? When you're with a break, you kind of need to encourage people to get them going, like good turn, strong move, to try and motivate them, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is exceptionally good behaviour to do so. So, yes, I like that. And I think it goes to a lot of character. And we are talking about National Racing League here for the team series. And that is how you get riders to develop and also keep that camaraderie and community strong. I must say, Rachel Vassell, what a move from her. Now, this is what we kind of flagged earlier when we were discussing if Rachel could perhaps have climbed at the same pace holding Carly's wheel, but then had absolutely nothing left. She had nothing to gain. But what she's done is very strategically gotten up that tower climb within herself to a degree, and now being quite aggressive. Now, it hasn't quite paid off for her in that example, but I love the way of riding. How good is that?
Yeah,
it's
that's
really good. It just kind of shows that she's really considering the bigger picture of all of this. I love it.
Certainly. And it shows there's different ways to race on Zwift. It's not just the original concept, or I guess the original thinking with Zwift racing was, it's just a TT. It's your best hour power. But there is a lot of different ways you can play this, especially on a course like today with the Epic KOM twice and the radio tower. There is ways to manage your power outputs, and that's what Rose has done really well with that group of 3. Now, over to the men's. Ollie Jones is on a 43-second deficit. Kobe Henderson and Sam Hill, the two who were working together in that break before, have attacked. I really like this. This is what you do when you're in a breakaway and you're with some people that are not working, aka dead wood. They are not working together, so you attack them and you bring the ones who are chopping off with you, a la Henderson and Hill, and you go, righto, if no one else wants to work, well, we'll go our own way. And now Campbell Pithy, who was not working in that group because Ollie Jones is his teammate, he's having to close the gap while Patrick Madsen sits in the wheel. I really like it. This is what you do. Get rid of the lead weights and, get it going. But it's good to see Sam Hill, Kobe Henderson giving it a nudge, and it's back together. We might see the power output drop here.
You've brought your sass tonight, Jethro Nagel, with your dead wood. I like it. Let's get this going. I feel we've only got one NRS series left to go. Can I ask permission for them to put a few more on? Because you're just finding your groove here. I like it. It's a really good point, though, and it's frustrating. We need to look at not just the physical element that the riders are putting out, but also the mental element. Sometimes riders, against their better judgment, will often, make attacks or make digs because they get a bit bored. Like, it's actually quite well known, especially in the ranks under World Tour, like even under Continental or Continental, it happens a lot, where the riders they just get, impatient and annoyed at how it's going. And it doesn't necessarily help them win the race, but it helps it be a more animated race and better power numbers. But Sam Hill is not one to ever waste an opportunity nor to waste any energy. Really good move from him. Now, if we look, just because they are on the lower slopes of the climb, it is all uphill from here for the most part. We're looking, they've been riding for 55 minutes. We're looking at a finish time around 1:10. So they've got about 15 minutes of racing under their belt still. Now, bearing that in mind, Ollie Jones has a 32-second advantage. He is a very powerful rider, but he is a little bit heavier, which is important for the climbing aspect than a rider like Kobe Henderson. But Sam Hill is a very similar body shape, very similar frame to what Ollie Jones is. So it's easy to compare their watts per kg or just their raw watts. So that's a really good way to watch it, knowing that Hill and Jones are a similar kind of structure. And then if you're looking at Ben Hill, he's a much slighter frame again and a little bit more like Partridge Madsen or Campbell Pithy. But I will point out that Partridge Madsen is actually quite a slender frame, and when he gets going, he can make up a huge amount of time on a climb. So I'm looking at him thinking, ooh, he's sort of sitting pretty and ready to go. He's also ghosting us at the moment. Look at that. Our production crew goes to zoom in and he's like, I'm out, peeps. So that keeps happening on the bridge. Do you think there's like a resident ghost hanging around or something, Jet? Yes. Yeah. Yes, our Zwift Bermuda Triangle.
The great mythical Zwift bridge. It's good to see that gap come down in the men's as well. But yeah, I agree with what you're saying. This is a really interesting dynamic we've got here in the women. They're about to approach the final climb, the Epic KOM. So I wonder how it's going to go with the three. And I think we might see Simpson and Vassell launch on Kaylee and see if they can unseat her and force her to chase back. But, I mean, they haven't hit it quite yet. We'll go back to the men's. Ollie Jones's gap just hovering around 40 seconds. Sam Hill is really trying to push on. And speaking of what you were talking about before, Kate, with riders just sort of attacking because maybe they get bored or, they're sick of being in the bunch. They just want to animate the race. It reminds me of when last year, Mathieu van der Poel at Torino Adriatico, it was raining, it was wet, and it was about 110 Ks to go, I think, and Van der Poel attacked, and he ended up holding off Pogacar to win the race solo in the rain, And Van der Poel was asked, why did he do that? Why did he attack from 100 k's out? And he said, because he was cold. So there's another reason
Yes.
why you might attack. And these
Yes.
riders
Well,
certainly aren't cold.
no, and in fairness, he will be a better rider in a few years' time, Van der Poel, because he does ride a little bit like an impetulant child sometimes. It's like he
He
gets
does.
bored and annoyed and frustrated with how it's all going, and he can make some average decisions. The interesting thing I think about that is, and this is where it all becomes a balance, this right now, the NRS Teams League is not the place to ride with impatience, and we're not seeing that. We were discussing it, but we're not saying that anybody is. But where you can do that is community leagues or something like that, or go out and do one of the Zwift races where you don't have the expectation of teams and performance on your shoulders, but instead you can have a bit of fun, see what happens. If you do get frustrated, who cares? No biggie, almost like a club race. And I reckon you need that too. I think it's hard to always have to sit back and be strategic and patient when you're a racer. A lot of people get into this and even get picked up by teams because they're racers and they just want to have a bit of fun with it. So we've got to give them the bandwidth to do that too, I reckon.
Yeah, good call. I really like that. That's why there's so many great races. You can, there's so many races that you can do at home on Zwift, and practice different tactics. You can try attacking from the bunch. You can try attacking the breakaway, or maybe you can try your hand sitting in for the sprint and seeing if you can get your best, 10-second sprint power. There's lots of different ways to do it, and a lot of the races here on the lineup, they're experienced Zwifters, and we just pass through Windows. I'm more of a Mac man myself, but these guys really know how to play the game. Lots of Zwift races under their belt, and it's good to see Sam Hill. He's got a bit of a distance now. He's got 10 seconds on that group of three now because Kobe's been distanced, unfortunately. He was working really hard. So the battle for the podium is certainly on now, and I think Patrice Madsen and Campbell Pithy and Ben Hill are going to be racing for that third on the steps.
Well, I reckon on that it might be a little bit of time before the fellas hit the very top to take a look at our Honey Badger Award. What do you reckon, Jet?
Okay, Honey Badger Award. Now, it's going to the most aggressive, is that right?
Yeah, so we'll have the Honey Badger for the men and the Golden Bilby for the women. For our most aggressive, exciting, best animator, I don't know, like this is the democracy of Jet and Kate, right? So we can kind of mould it to our will.
We can. Well, we've had obviously Troy Herfoss launching a kamikaze at the start. Really liked that. We also had Dylan McKenna just chatting chamois cream as well. If Robbie McEwen was with us, he would be maybe plugging his chamois cream, and then of course
I was about.
Ollie
Did
Jones.
Did I miss another chamois cream reference, or was that just one?
No, there was only one, but I thought it deserved a mention because he
I'm
quickly.
just like, phew. I'm like, what are we starting here?
It was. He mentioned the chamois cream, and then he went out the back. So I don't know. Maybe it didn't work that well. And then, Ollie Jones. I mean, the attack, the group is not working. So he said, "Well, I'll go solo." That's pretty good for Honey Badger. What do you think?
It is. It is. I agree. I'm going to default to you on that one because I think Ollie Jones for the Honey Badger more than deserves it. It doesn't matter what happens from here. This massive effort, I think, deserves that kudos. So they're an hour and 2 minutes in, 38 kilometres. Based on their current pace, they will be getting to the finish line. His ETA for Ollie Jones is about 1:09.5. So they've got about 7.5 minutes left. Can he maintain this? I reckon he can. Look at that heart rate. He's cruising. He's done all the hard work and he's now just settling in. If we can just put a request into Zwift HQ that on cue they can like give us a thumbs up or a high five or a salute or something. That could be quite cool. I think they've probably muted me by now, Jet, because I always put in these requests. And so far, suffice to say, not a lot of materialised in game. So I guess maybe I need to fill out the official form rather than just a shout out.
Well, we need everyone to just collectively send in a ticket. The support tickets do work en masse. So if you agree at home, send in a support ticket. Just flood them. Absolutely flood them. You can. Now, this took me a while, Kate, to realise. You can see in the jersey those little highlighted things in the back. I didn't know what they were. You just saw one drop in there. They are the thumbs up, the kudos you get on the ride. That could be people you're riding in the race with, or just people at home on the Zwift Companion. I didn't know they go in the jersey. That's what they are.
I love that because you know in-game so well and you're still learning. I kind of love that. That's like really fun. But at the same time, I'm judging you just a little bit. Not too much. Like, don't be too concerned. Just a little bit. I think, you impress me in enough other ways that it doesn't have to be the defining factor. But you're right. So anybody watching or on your companion app, I'm going to do it right now. I wonder if we could get a live one to drop in. Let's see if we can like multitask. All righty, let's do this. All right, are you? Oh, you can't even. Okay, this is going. This is really smooth. This is one of those wonderful in-game initiatives where in the production we can hear them sighing, like, "Really, guys? Like,
there's
heads
only
up,
about
come on
11
now."
Ollie Jones. There's about 11 Ollie Jones on there. I'm just going to give him a little. This is Sam Hill. There goes a big thumb for Sam Hill. Now, I'm going to give one to Ollie Jones because I think he needs to go for the KOM for this circuit. This circuit has a KOM. It's an hour and 8 minutes. And guess who has that KOM? It is Sam Hill.
Oh, Sam Hill. Geez, I tell you what, the Hill brothers are kind of lighting it up. Ben Hill at the moment is being certainly not sitting back. All righty.
Look at the power. I mean, they've just been holding 5.2 watts per kilo, and then they're accelerating back up to 6. That is insane. Look at 350 watts. It is a lot of power. And look, we've already got a little bit of a separation. Who's been dropped back there? Partridge Madsen hasn't been able to follow that acceleration. I wonder, will there be a lull in this group so he can get back? You just got to stay on the pedals, don't you, Kate? And he is trying to get back at 5.5. As there's just a little bit of pace comes off this group in the mist as well.
The pace has slowed down ever so slightly. So where we thought we were looking at about 1:09, we're now looking at about 1:10.5. And that is important to track because otherwise, if you're in your mind thinking, all right, 7.5 minutes, can I say at this pace, at this heart rate, there's a significant difference between 7.5 and 8.5 minutes. Anybody who's ever tried riding a kilometre time trial flat out will know that 1 minute can make a heck of a difference. So they do need to keep pushing. Now, that gap looks pretty solid and comfortable for Ollie Jones. And actually, as he comes out of this tunnel, Jet, that's where it goes up and down a bit, and he does get a little bit of reprieve. So I'm not too concerned about him. But the 4 chasers, Partridge, Madsen, Pithy, Hill and Hill, they can still do a lot of damage in the next, what will be just shy of 5 minutes for them. They're looking at finishing just over the 1 hour and 11 minute mark. So within about 5 minutes to go, but it seems like the 5 minutes that just keeps going and going.
It certainly does. Ollie Jones is looking super strong. I guess he could be considered a professional e-racer. He does race for the Canyon Esports team. And I'm just looking at some of his statistics now, and he's ranked 380th in the world. I feel like that should be a little bit higher. I mean, that's great. But he's won many. He's got his Palmares on Zwift Power. We've got obviously 4th place at the 2020 World Championships. 4 professional Zwift wins, 8 professional Zwift podiums as well, 4 times, soon to be 5 times NRS Esport victories. He's certainly a really experienced Zwifter, level 50. He knows how to race. He's super strong. It's just funny where the winning sort of move went, isn't it, Kate? Because he didn't go on the climb. He went sort of in the valley.
He did, yeah, and I think that's often the place to go because people are, to a degree, caught napping. They're not expecting it. They highlight and consider what the really big points on the course are going to be and focus on those. And sometimes that can leave you a little bit vulnerable in some of those earlier parts, definitely. But I think that Ollie Jones, given his strength as a time trialist, given his ability to really hold a solid pace, he knows for him the pinch points on the course are going to be different to some of the others. Vassal is attacking over on the women's side.
Oh,
She's
yes.
like the gift that keeps on giving with the tenacity that she's showing. I'm really, really impressed by this ride, especially because up that radio tower, she did climb at her own pace a little bit. So the women have been out on course for just shy of an hour 10. Now we're looking at just over an hour 20 for them. So there's probably about 12 or 13 minutes left for the women. For the men, we are in these final couple of minutes. I do think it is time to hand out our Golden Bilby award. Jet, I can't go past Rose Vassal. Carly Taylor has been tremendous, but the way Rose Vassal has just managed her form and the way she's been riding and then attacking and being aggressive, I'm so impressed. What a cracker of a ride.
Yeah, good call, Rose. Had a huge ride, super impressive, taking it to Carly as well, and was not intimidated at all by the gaps she was getting on the climbs. And she's really matching her what for what. Just taking a little drink there as well. I have to say, Carly Taylor's avatar looks really similar to her in real life as well, even the way she's on the bike that we saw her little live feed. But yeah, Rose Vassal, the Golden Bilby Award. That's certainly something just to put on the palmarès as they go past the little villages here. She's probably just looking through the window saying, I'm the Golden Bilby today. But Rose and Carly, well, wouldn't you? But they're neck and neck, side by side. This is really, really interesting. And I wonder, will it be a question of someone just not being able to hold on, or will there be a searing attack thrown down that'll cause the separation between these two? Because they look pretty even.
They do, and it is an interesting matchup, isn't it? I think that Carly has shown her ability to just keep going and keep putting the pressure on. But Vassal is emerging as a little bit more dynamic on the climbs in her ability to temper her effort and come back and really vary the pace at which she is riding rather than just standing. Now, in saying that, Carly Taylor will not let that go easily. Over on the men's, Jet, our honey badger, Ollie Jones, he's going to wrap this up. He's coming up to the finish here. He'll be just over an hour 11, but the fight for second is going to be on. They're a minute and a half back. And this group of four, they now know a minute and a half. Sam Hill's not sitting and waiting. Cam Pithy is also on the move. We're seeing the orange. We can see the effort from Sam Hill. This is getting interesting. Yeah. Campbell Pithy, jeepers, he is climbing like an absolute boss in terms of having these dynamic moves. Ben Hill not letting him have it, remembering that Sam has a bit more acceleration in him. So when it does flatten out just up here a little bit, that gives him an opportunity to come back. But how fried is he? I guess we're going to find out.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of Sam as well. He tried to distance the others early, and I like how Campbell Pithy waited until Ollie had finished before launching his attacks and not to draw the group any closer to the eventual winner. Ollie's obviously got the win there, but it's going to be an interesting finale here. You can't go too early. This is Sam is launching everything. Now, look, he's not gone all out. He knows there's a little bit left to this climb. Ben Hill's trying to close the gap. Looks like he will get back on terms. Sam's super experienced. He knows He's just trying to hold it, 7.5 watts per kilo. Can Ben and Patrick Madsen get on terms? Now, Patrick Madsen is super fast. I would back him here. But look, with Ben with the aero power up, Sam looks a little cooked there. And I think Ben is going to come over the top of Sam and be king of the hill of the two. And it's second and third place. And Patrick Madsen coming in there fourth. Then Campbell Pithy. And Sam there looks pretty buckled. And it was a well-timed aero boost. Pretty good.
Pretty buckled. I think that's it. Pretty buckled. I reckon that's like our almost a counter award for the night, like the pretty buckled award.
The Lanterne Rouge.
I can think of a very cool trophy for that. That was tremendous. Now Ollie Jones has actually finished with an average power. Are you sitting down? I know you are. 372 watts.
Wow.
For that race. So
for an hour 10.
An hour and 11 minutes at 372 watts. Ollie Jones, what an impressive ride. And that's at an average of 5 watts per kg. Probably even more for the data nerds listening. Sensational ride by him. Regardless of any strategy or the way that played out, which we've also complemented, simply those raw numbers. Next level, 20-minute, 5.7 watts per kg average. Very, very impressive ride from him. Over in the women, so they're an hour 14 in, Jet. We are looking at about 10 minutes more. This is that point where the estimate on finish time can change a little bit because it is live based on the pace they're keeping. We were questioning, can Rose Vassell hold on? Will she be able to overcome Carly Taylor? Clearly listening, clearly slightly offended. We love you, Carly. I apologise. But at the same time, we've just kept you honest because you chunked it down a gear and look at this ride. This is very controlled from her, but she's starting to hurt, Jet. That she's putting time into Vassell, but she's not putting tons and tons and tons. Vassell hasn't given up. And Taylor's having to work for it. 178 heart rate. Again, that really typical lower cadence from her, around 65. I don't know about you. If I'm riding at 65 cadence, you need to send a paramedic around because it generally means I'm about to collapse off the bike. But I would say the same for Carly Taylor. If she was at 110 cadence, I would say something is happening over there. Please send help. So she does look comfortable for her, but certainly not tapping away for an easy win. She's having to put the effort in. And Vassell, to her credit, is holding that gap pretty steady and continuing to really push away at that power.
Yeah, she is. They're super, super even in their power outputs. I think it's just Carly had the little bit extra to put in the attack. And just get that separation now she has, but it's good to see Rose is not giving up. She's the Golden Bilby Award for a good reason. There's about 150 meters worth of climbing left as well. But yeah, Carly still not letting up there. Look, 4.8. Jeez, it's she's pushing on, and I wonder how she'll go with her best time up this climb because it's about 22 minutes and 7 seconds according to Zwift Power is her fastest time up here, and I think she's going full beans. That is 178. That's her highest heart rate for the day I think we've seen. This is all in. She's just trying to push that gap as far as possible, and we might even get a battle for third. Kate, we've got Simpson and Nicholson who find themselves together looking for that podium spot. There they are.
Yeah, I do. I think that's an interesting battle going on back there too, because at the top of this kind of climb, as we just saw for the minor places in the men's racing, it's not just as easy as you wait and somebody sprints. So we've got Vassell, who is certainly settling in behind Taylor at all, and that could change because remembering in the next kilometre or so, they go onto slightly flatter lands before they kick back up. That is where Taylor needs to really keep the pressure on, because that is where Rose Vassell is at her potentially the most dangerous, and Taylor a little bit vulnerable. When we're looking at Simpson and Nicholson, very similar race in terms of their average watts per kg, but where they're quite divergent is they're quite different frames. Simpson a little bit more of a sprinter, but Kate Nicholson is the one with a little bit more of a punch. Simpson will want to put a little bit of distance into Nicholson in those final couple of 100 metres. It looks like she's already turning that on now, because Nicholson could be quite dangerous if she is on her wheel. Worth noticing, though, they're Butterfield's racing team, Jet. They're both under 23s. They're both learning their way. I'm just loving seeing them out here getting this experience in this NRS-style racing. So they're friends, but in this moment they're also foes.
Yeah, well, it's a good conduit for NRS, especially for under 23s and the under 19s, which is the junior ranks. Hayley Oakes is in that ranking, and was distanced. I think she's still sitting in 6th position as well, but she's still pushing on, holding her watts. And yeah, it's a great conduit to get into the NRS level. This battle between Nicholson and Simpson, who Simpson's just pulling away now. A sprint after a race like this, it's completely different with this sort of level of climbing in your legs. This is a really tough course. Look at the kilometres. It's 40 Ks and almost 1,000 metres already. That's a really tough route on Zwift. Super tough, and your legs just don't feel the same at the end. And this is actually quite a long race, isn't it, Kate? It's not one. Usually your races are, between that 30 to sort of 45-minute mark. This is what you'd call a 200-kilometre day if we were talking in Tour de France.
Yeah, it is. It's like an esports epic. There's not a lot of these length races on Zwift, actually. Even over on Community League, World Championships is usually kind of the longest one we get. Even when we have Prem League going, they tend not to race too long. They're a little bit, usually within the hour is what we see. So this is a bit of an epic, but I like it. It bridges the gap, I think, between some of the real esports specialists who definitely don't prepare for the equivalent of a 200k day, but it also gives them the chance to stretch those legs and give some of those IRL riders a chance as well. Carly Taylor, we know that she's done so much on the road. She's ridden, off the top of my head, Jet, I'd need to Google it, but I'd say about 8 or 10 women's Giro Donnas, so the Giro d'Italia, which is currently on at the moment in Europe. Now, she retired quite young, I think. She had a lot more to do with her life and wanted to change direction a bit, but she has stayed every bit as athletic. She's turned a bit to Ironman triathlon, to marathon running. She's clearly still so fit and so strong on the bike. In terms of athletic age, she still has the world at her feet if she's so inclined to do that. This is a really good way for her to keep this racing under the legs, and these slightly longer ones would suit her too. So it doesn't surprise me, not just that she's out there and she's at the front, but that she is pushing it all the way to the absolute end. So they don't have too far to go. Around the hour 25 mark is what they're predicting now. So within that last 5 minutes for Carly, I think we said earlier, that last 5 minutes can be pretty nasty, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely it can. I actually wasn't aware that I knew Carly was quite a good domestic racer, but I did not know she was a former, I guess what was considered the World Tour professional back then. Multiple World Championships. She's been 25th in the world back in 2013 when it was in Italy. She's really got quite a big career. Obviously, as you said, multiple Giro Donna, which is obviously the race that's on right now for the women. Huge race. Shout out Annemiek, who won last night. But yeah, she has had a considerable career, and it's really good to see she's, like you said, stayed super fit. Cycling is obviously a big part of her life, working for Zwift, and it feels good to still compete at a NRS level, I imagine. And she's really putting on a big clinic here for Rose and extending that gap to 18 seconds now. And Rose is not giving up. I really like this. There is a tendency to, once you're gapped and maybe your position is sort of consolidated, you 10 seconds ahead of third, but you're 10 seconds back from first. There is a little bit inside you calling out to say, just drop the watts back a touch, but she is not giving up. And I actually think it's because Ella Simpson is gaining on her. She's dropped Nicholson, and now she is only about 9 seconds behind Rose. So sometimes this happens in the game, Kate. You could be in a race and you've been dropped from the front group and you just want to let go. But then someone starts to chase you from behind and you've got no choice but to hold on.
And this is where you do have to not just ride to your own limit, but you've got to keep an eye on what everybody's doing, because Vassal, we've been focusing really what's happening between Rose Vassal and Carly Taylor, but Ella Simpson on the march, it's very clear if you do look at all her power data that she's an exceptionally good climber, and she needed to push ahead because Caitlin Nicholson is an exceptionally good sprinter now, and power rider, more of a power dynamic rider. I think their teammates and Simpson would have known that, but there would have been a bit of a hesitation for Simpson to flat out attack Nicholson, given that they're teammates. So I feel as though she's actually played quite a respectful line there in terms of holding off and not leaving her on her own, not hitting her too early. But then when she has gone, she is full march over to Rose Vassal. Time will tell, will she make it on time or has she left it a little bit too late? I think that's a bit down to experience. But I like the way that this Butterfields racing team have approached it, and that Simpson and Nicholson did look after each other for that first element of the climb. So I really like that. And if we also look at the Epic KOM from the first time around, Nicholson has had a blinding ride up there. We can't just say she's more of a power rider. I think we have to understand we are on the second lap. It's pretty tough to do even once.
Yeah, doing the Epic KOM twice in one Zwift ride is pretty tough. It certainly taxes your legs. You know, Zwift is a different stress on the body when you're rolling around. It's just it feels different to being outside, and you really feel a course like this the next day. It's kind of like a gym workout as Carly Taylor's approaching the final 300 or 400 meters, I think, 43 kilometers. So yeah, they're working super hard, and you will feel this one tomorrow or tomorrow morning and the next day as well. But I wonder how this will shake up the team standings. I'll just refresh my memory. Butterfields has the monopoly sitting in first place. Now, they're 300 points ahead of Inform Make, which is the team that Carly rides for. Now, with Butterfield sitting in third position with Ella Simpson, I wonder what the points jump will be. They might bridge the gap, Carly might bridge the gap a little bit, but with two Butterfields in the top four, that might, keep it the same.
Ooh, and that's something that we need to continue to look at. That it isn't just about the individual riders; it's about where the team is going. It looks to me like Simpson is very close to catching Rose Vassal. Come on, Rose, this is it. If she can just hang on, Carly Taylor looks like she'll take this reasonably comfortably. But calm the Bilby. That's exactly right. Come on, Rose, you've got this. But Ella Simpson, what a march. I mean, what a timing. I do think that this is probably the climb of the night. Maybe she left it a bit too late being courteous to her teammate Nicholson. I think she'll just miss out. But, gee, Ella Simpson, what a cracking ride from her to get so close. Carly Taylor, she rode away with it up there, but that ended up being there's quite a lot of highlights out of that whole combo. And a minute, an hour 26. That's a solid ride. Like, they're going to need a few little protein powders, maybe some bacon. I don't know, something. Legs up. Put Netflix on, chill out, people. The Tour de France starts soon. Maybe that can inspire you. Should we go and look at the results? Because I'm in a particularly waffling mood, Jet. That excited me so much. So let's cut me off by bringing the results up.
Yes, well, we had the two hills, Sam and Ben, in third and second place, and the mountain, Ollie Jones, taking his third victory in a row and really dominating the series. So that was quite a nice podium. With Jones was just too strong, won by over 45 seconds, I think, in the end after attacking in the valley. And with the women, we've just seen, if we cross to their results, super strong ride. Ella Simpson, Rose Vassell in second, the Honey Bilby or the Golden Bilby, well, I guess that's both the same thing, and Carly Taylor taking the victory in a strong ride. So we had two solo wins, but it didn't come easy, Kate.
It did not come easy at all. That is one of the hardest fought races that we've seen across the board. All across, I think that we're going to get some power records. And there are definitely some files to reflect on and think I'm glad I turned up. We've got another round, of course, coming up next week, Jet, so it's not all over. This week's still another chance for them to shine.
That's right. We're back on the Champs-Élysées. That is the next round. So maybe finally something for the sprinters. I'm sure riders like Partridge Madsen and even Mashed Potato, shout out to him if he's entered, will like this course. He gets a mention everywhere, Mashed Potato, but we do like food.
Oh, look, I'm a big fan of Mashed Potato. I just think, like, if you can choose any Zwift name, Mashed Potato has got to be up there in the creativity stakes. Jet, thank you for having me this week. You're the hostess. Oh, no, the host with the most. Apologies for the hostess. You're the host with the most. And Anna Russell in production. You're sensational. I'm so excited that AusCycling and Zwift are working together on this incredible series. And thank you to all of our athletes for supporting it. Drum up your teammates and your colleagues, because if we can have a cracker finale on the Champs-Élysées, a little Australian miserable winter raining kind of Tour de France edition, that would be sensational. So that's next week.
Absolutely. We'll see you in a few weeks' time on the Champs. Thanks for tuning in.